Give us a quick overview. What are they saying in Britain, in the papers, on the streets about today's referendum?
Well, very wet on the streets today, and both sides are hoping that that doesn't deter people from coming out. Around 46 million people are eligible to vote, and experts here are saying they are expecting a high turnout, around about 65%. That is a very good turnout if they get that. It could be more, of course. Let's have a look at the newspapers. Here, The Sun, which is part of the Murdoch stable, really coming down on the side of let's get out of the EU. It proclaims Independence Day from Britain, and it says at the top here, you can free the UK from the clutches of the EU today. So who knew we were in the clutches of the European Union? Well, apparently we are. So that's one side of the argument. But let's take a look here at the Daily Mirror, another popular tabloid, and that says, don't take a leap into the dark. And look at this dark hole here. Vote Remain today. And at the top it says, for your family, for your children, for your pension, for your pay packet, for your jobs and the NHS. So those two remaining, those two very much on opposite sides. Let's take a look at the Times here, a much more considered front page. But of course they're making the point that Britain is part of Europe. Day of reckoning, it says. And here it reproduces the question that people will face at the ballot box. Remain a member of the European Union, tick there, or leave the European Union. So two very simple questions, but of course a lot riding on it, and people will be deciding that today.
What are the smart people in Britain saying, the learned ones? What are they saying about a Britain possible leaving and what that would mean, not just for Britain, but also for the wider world?
Well, I'm not sure how learned they are. Of course, David Cameron has really led the Remain campaign. He has an excellent education. He's been to Eton. He's highly educated. But he also shares the same educational background as Boris Johnson, the former London mayor, very colourful character. He has been, of course, the voice of the Leave campaign. So the Remain people are saying that really there is no point leaving the EU. If we want to trade with the EU, we would still have to abide by some of the rules, that this would basically explode Britain's economy and could prompt it into a recession, from very dire warnings from the International Monetary Fund, which came out earlier this year about the effects on GDP, British GDP. And of course they're also saying this is a matter of security. We have huge issues around terrorism, around security, and we need to face these together. Other arguments, of course, about climate change, all those really large issues. The Remain camp are saying let's face these together. It can only be tackled in a large group.
How will this affect Scotland? We've seen a referendum in the past. Do you expect a second referendum in Scotland if the exit happens?
Well, the country is divided regionally. Scotland as a whole is expected to vote to remain in the EU. London also is another centre which is expected to come out for the Remain camp. Now, there has been talk that if the Brexiteers, as they're called, were to win and that Britain were to leave the EU, this could prompt another referendum on Scottish independence, because Scotland has made it very clear it sees its future inside the EU. So obviously these are very high stakes. David Cameron, the Prime Minister, realises that. That's why he's been campaigning so passionately for the Remain camp. He does not want to see Britain out of Europe or the breakup of the United Kingdom. So it's a very real possibility that this could trigger a second referendum on Scottish independence.
Now, you mentioned David Cameron. What does the future hold for David Cameron himself? If Britain exits the Union, do you expect him to step down?
Well, David Cameron has said that whatever the result, he will stay on as Prime Minister, and he has previously let it be known that this is the last term that he will serve as Prime Minister. But he may not have the luxury of time. Indeed, many senior Conservative Party members have said, Kenneth Clarke, who is a Tory grandee, as it were, has said that David Cameron would not last 30 seconds if the Leave camp were to win and Britain was going out of the European Union. The Conservative Party have a history of stabbing their leaders in the back, of mounting aggressive leadership challenges. He may well have to reconsider his position. So obviously this is a very tense day for him. A lot to do with his political future rides on this vote.
And what are the analysts saying about the British economic outlook straight after?
Well, even the Leave campaigners admit that a vote to leave the EU would, the UK would experience quite a period of economic turmoil. However, the Leave campaign is saying it will be worth it in the long run, that a lot of the European countries, their economies like Spain, Italy, even France and Germany, that their economies are not as strong as the UK, and the UK would prosper coming out and negotiating its own trade deals and negotiating with countries like South Africa, other Commonwealth countries, other countries seeking trade deals with China. But of course, all of that would take time. Even the exit, of course, would take it would be a 2-year negotiation process. Markets don't like instability. They don't like uncertainty. So if there was a vote to leave, there is economic turmoil is expected from both sides.
Where does it leave the UK and the people on the streets today? Do you get a sense that Britain is more divided today than ever before?
Oh, certainly. Certainly it is extremely divided. I just showed you those newspaper headlines really sums it up. I mean, this has divided families. I can't talk to my parents about this issue because we are on different sides. So generations are split. Of course, you don't know which way they're going to go. Families are split. Work colleagues are split. So, you know, and of course, we've seen a very heated debate politically. We saw that horrific murder of Jo Cox, the female Labour MP, and her husband has come out to say that he believes she was killed for her political beliefs. So obviously that we've seen a really heated debate politically, and of course that has trickled down as people talk about the issue with their work colleagues and with their family.
Catherine, we thank you for that update. You'll be keeping us updated, I'm sure, throughout the next day or so as to how matters develop. That's Catherine Drew. She's our European correspondent coming to you live out of London, telling us it's too close to call. The country's as divided as it's ever been. What do you think? Of course, the question we ask you with regards to that is Brexit. Will Britain vote to leave the European Union? Now, after our first break, we'll speak to Professor Parsons about what it would mean for South Africa. So that should be a very interesting one. But